Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech live on Twitch. And I haven't done a live stream since the SE dropped. So finally, let's just be thankful it's done. For one, I am just so relieved because we've been talking about that phone for way too long. It was getting really, really boring and stale. How it was just non-stop, like, will we get it? Will we get it? Will we get it? Will Nope, not today. No, not today. Let's try again. There were so many mornings I got up early expecting the site to refresh, and it's finally over with. It's finally done. I'm very glad for it. But it has me wondering, will there be more before WWDC begins, or will all other hardware that we are hearing leaked to be launching soon, will all of that just be saved for June? I don't know. I don't know for sure, obviously, but no one really knows for sure at this point. Though I do have some theories, and I thought it might be fun in today's live stream to speculate on what I think those could be. Let me catch up on donations here. Overjeever donated. Thank you very much. I know this is going to be kind of random. You don't have to say that every single time, but thank you. Thank you for the donation. But I recently hit 1 year with a credit card on April 8th, and I turned 20 on April 12th. But how's it going with your Apple Card, by the way? Okay, we can talk about that a little bit. I have no updated thoughts on the Apple Card. It's been a good credit card for me. It's my only credit card. They're still not reporting it to credit unions for some people, which I find bizarre. So, like, my Apple Card does not show up on my credit report, which I find interesting. And I've contacted Apple about that, and they said that in time, that they're gonna start reporting that user data to the credit unions so that it will reflect on your credit report. But I don't want anyone thinking that, like, the Apple Card not showing up on your credit report is like a permanent thing. In fact, it's not really possible for it to be a permanent thing. That just Apple says, you know what, we're not going to report to credit unions. No, they pretty much have to after a certain period of time. I think it's just a very new credit card, which is why they may haven't done it yet. But if it was forever and permanently a card that never reported to credit unions, then people could just apply for the Apple Card, use it like crazy, never pay it off, and it wouldn't damage their credit score. So it's not logical for them to never report it. It's just they're waiting for, at least a decent amount of history to go by. But I know that Apple said that at some point this year they're going to start reporting it to credit unions, and they just haven't yet. So once they start reporting it, it will reflect on my credit score. Not that it matters. I really don't care about my credit score because we're not planning on doing any kind of loans or we're not buying a house again anytime soon. And if we buy a car, we're not going to be getting a loan on it. So there's not really a point in me focusing on my credit score, but it's still fine. Michael said, no more SE. Yes, congratulations. Thank you for the bits. Liquid Retina, subscribe with Twitch Prime for 16 months. Holy cow, appreciate that. And do a title. They could change their mind, though. Ta-da, title. Wait, what does he say? Go apologize to your daddy. It's not my daddy. Okay. The ta-da title? I don't know what you mean by that. They could change their mind, though. Anyway, the guess I wanted to get into was that I think that there will probably be quite a few announcements at WWDC, not just software related. My personal guess is that look at it this way. We got the iPad Pro website refresh with the Magic Keyboard and everything mid-March. Okay, I was just looking back at the dates. That was around March 14th, March 15th. I'm trying to remember the exact date, but it was somewhere in the middle of March. And it was just about a month later now, because we're at mid-April, that they dropped the iPhone SE. So to me, it would make a whole lot more consistency. It would make a whole lot of sense for consistency's sake that mid-May they would do another site refresh for something. My personal guess is the 14-inch MacBook Pro, because that is it. The MacBook Pro currently is in desperate need of a refresh. Not so much the 16-inch MacBook Pro. There are some new Intel CPUs they could adopt, but for the most part, the fact that it still has the butterfly keys, still 128 gig standard, next to the MacBook Air, which got the Magic Keyboard, like, they have to update that soon. My guess is they were just kind of waiting for the new Intel CPUs and stuff to come out. So I think mid-May would make sense for them to drop the new MacBook Pro, and then at WWDC they do the over-ear headphones, AirTags, as well as maybe that new Apple TV, which I know has been rumored for a while, and there's like a slightly tweaked Apple TV remote, potentially. But that's what makes the most sense to me. I don't know. It could go a different way. Like, it's possible that because May is so close to Worldwide Developers Conference, they're like, we don't need to do a site refresh in May. We'll just save that for the event. However, consider the March event in 2019. They did a bunch of hardware refreshes like a week or like 2 weeks before the event took place because they wanted the event to just be about services. So they did all the hardware a couple weeks before. So they're not really against doing site refreshes right before events. Statistically, they're comfortable with doing that. So to me, that's why it would make sense that we got to launch mid-March, mid-April, somewhere in the middle of May. Maybe expect the new MacBook Pro, or maybe they'll do the headphones or something. I don't know. To me, though, the headphones and the AirTags seem like something there's probably a lot to talk about on stage 4. That and maybe, HomePod Mini has been in the works for a long time. I know that Apple TV seems small because they're not really doing anything major with it. All they're doing with the Apple TV is updating the CPU, which is why I would guess it would be like Worldwide Developers Conference. They love talking about all their different platforms. The past few years they've had developers conferences. It's always been like, so let's talk about watchOS, tvOS, iOS, macOS, and now they got iPadOS, which kind of goes hand in hand with iOS anyway. But like, they love doing those different like individual software updates, and there's not really much to talk about for tvOS. So it would make a whole lot of sense to me that they would, while talking about, okay, tvOS now has like built-in activity workouts that you can follow along with, and it's got kids mode and stuff like that. And also, while we're updating tvOS, here's some new Apple TV hardware, which is basically just an A12 chip. Cool. And probably a lower starting price or something like that. Like, my guess is if they update the Apple TV with the A12 chip, it's going to cost like $150. They'll get rid of the Apple TV HD, and they'll just have one Apple TV instead of two. It'll be 4K capable and all that. Or hopefully they can go below 150. That would be better for them. Because maybe they want to talk more about the ARM MacBooks at Worldwide Developers Conference, and that's why they're launching the 14-inch MacBook Pro in May, because that's just kind of, bringing the 13-inch MacBook Pro up to speed with the rest of the MacBook lineup, because it's insanely dated right now, which is why my video about waiting to buy that MacBook I don't think is a bad idea, because I feel like it could get refreshed next month. We'll see. Seems too soon. This credibility to announce ARM MacBooks. I think they could announce them. I don't think that means they'll start shipping them. I think that's very different things. Like, if they're making, I think it's reasonable to expect Apple to make a big switch to ARM CPUs like that. Like, it's not going to happen overnight, though. I think they want to give developers like a huge heads up on that, which is why my guess is that they're going to announce a bunch of developer tools, because it is a developer conference. They're going to announce a bunch of developer tools that's going to help people design their apps for the ARM Mac, but the ARM MacBook will probably not start shipping in June. They just might unveil it in June and then say this is coming in the fall, this is coming in this winter, or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, ARM rumors have been fairly consistent over the years. I remember people saying like the ARM MacBook's coming out in 2020, and that was like 3 years ago. So this is the year. This is the year for them to do it, unless there's plans can change obviously, but that's my guess. On a side note, I love the lighting. Oh, cool, thank you. I've never heard that before. Everyone's always complaining about the lighting. There's very rarely someone who's just like, hey, this looks fine. This looks good. I'm waiting for the 14-inch MacBook Pro 2020 to upgrade my laptop. Yeah, I think that'll be a really popular model, because 16-inch MacBook Pro is kind of a beast. It's a huge tank, but it's kind of up there in price. Like, back when they first unveiled the 2016 MacBook Pro, the larger model, the 15-inch model, started at $2,000. That was the one I bought. I bought like the cheapest, lowest end possible 15-inch MacBook Pro when they updated them with USB-C and all that. And I was like, oh man, $2,000's kind of steep, but I was actually aiming for the 13-inch MacBook Pro. But I was working at the Mandarin Ranch at the time. Was I? Or I just stopped working at the Mandarin Ranch. No. I stopped working at the Mandarin Ranch in 2017. So yeah, I was 2016. I was still a farm boy working on the fruit, working at the orchards, saving my money. And I think because it was harvest season, I got like double the hours. So I was working like extra during the winter months. And because of that, I had a lot more money than I thought I was going to have, and I was like, oh, okay, if I have more, then I should just stretch my budget a little bit and go ahead and get the 15-inch MacBook Pro, because the 13-inch one, I was going to get like a higher spec one, but it didn't have a GPU, so I was like, I'll splurge a little bit and go big. But now, like the 13-inch MacBook Pro, like the 16-inch MacBook Pro starts at 2400, which is quite a bit higher than what the 13-inch MacBook Pro starts at. I don't know what they're going to do with the 14-inch. I'm kind of curious how they're going to start the price of it, because I can almost guarantee you the next like 13-inch to 14-inch MacBook Pro refresh, they have to ditch the 128 gig SSD. There's no way they're keeping that around, because they ditched it on the MacBook Air. They already updated the iPad Pros to be 128 gig by default. So like the 2020 seems like a year they want to update their storage options. They doubled the Mac Mini storage, so there's no reason for the 13-inch to keep 128. So I'm guessing they're gonna up it to 256 by default. Um, I think, yeah, we already have Touch Bar on everything, but I feel like this next refresh they should make sure that all of the MacBook Pros have four Thunderbolt 3 ports and not any of them have two. And that might make the price go up a little bit, but I think the specs you'll be getting with it will make it worth it. That way, if you're like, well, I didn't want to spend $1,500 on a MacBook Pro on the refresh, then they'll just redirect you towards the MacBook Air. They're like, okay, if you don't want to spend that much, then just get a MacBook Air, and kind of stagger the lineup a little bit more so they make more sense. Um, because right now there's a lot of overlap. There's a whole lot of overlap between the MacBook Air and the 13-inch MacBook Pro. So if they could differ those a little bit and provide something that's a happy middle ground between 16-inch MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, which just got its update, which has decent specs in it, to be honest. Are you gonna buy AirTags? Maybe. I guess it kind of depends on the price. I really wouldn't use them. I probably will get them for review, at least. I don't know if I'll keep them, but at this point, like, everyone's at home. Everyone's not doing anything. Everyone's like just hanging out at their houses. I don't think AirTags would be very useful at this point, for me at least. There's not something I can think of that's like, ooh man, I would put my AirTags on that because I lose that all the time. Like that doesn't. My wallet goes in the same place every day. My keys go in the same place every day, and I don't go out that much these days anyway. So, do you think an A14 will have the same performance editing 4K on the Mac as the iPad Pro and LumaFusion on iPad OS? Well, there's not like a standard way that Macs edit 4K. There's so many different CPUs you can talk about. You've got Mac Mini hardware, you've got MacBook Air hardware, you've got MacBook Pro hardware. Yes, I'm sure you can edit 4K video just fine with the A14 chip, because I know you can edit it just fine on the A11 chip if you want it. But yeah, it'll get better and faster, I'm sure. I do think that the timelines for the iPad Pro refresh don't make sense. I don't believe them right now. Um, I don't even care about like track records or who's reporting what, but I just mean like looking at how Apple has released iPad Pros in the past and how people have continued to try to predict how they come out, and consistently been wrong. So many people were telling us that the LiDAR and dual camera iPad Pro, that's coming in the fall, and it didn't. It came out in March of the following year. So they've been fairly consistent with the launches in the past. Like it seems to be every like year and a half. It's never been a year, and it's never been 2 years. It's always been like a year and a half between each iPad Pro refresh. And I personally I don't believe, if they wanted to give the iPad Pro a big CPU boost, they would have given it something like the A13X, which doesn't exist, but just update the A13 chip to be faster. But the reason they put the A12Z chip in and not some like drastic redesign A13X is because they knew no one was maxing out the A12. So there was no point in spending all that money into making the CPU and GPU faster if no one's really utilizing the power of the A12 that much anyway. No one's maxing it out to the point where they need more performance. So that's why I don't buy the rumors of A14X and 5G iPad are coming at the end of this year. For one, because that seems like an incredibly tiny upgrade. I mean, you think the 2020 iPad upgrade was small? Imagine an update that was just the CPU and 5G. That's it. Would they really do that? 6 to 7 months after they just launched a new iPad Pro. I don't buy it. It doesn't make sense to me. We're hearing these rumors of the mini LED iPad, which I know John was saying is a separate refresh from the 5G one in the fall. But that means they would have to do an iPad Pro refresh like 6 to 7 months after the last one, which is very, very quick considering the past few iPad Pro refreshes are every 18 months, followed by another like 6 months later update. To me, that doesn't sound like Apple. What sounds like Apple to me, which again, I could be wrong, what sounds more like Apple to me is they will give the A14X 5G and mini LED all in one iPad in like early 2021 or Worldwide Developers Conference in 2021. That makes more sense to me because Apple usually puts a decent amount of time between iPad Pro refreshes, and the 2020 iPad we just got is very, very minor, and the one people are talking about coming in the fall is even smaller than that. I don't think just, well, the CPU is much faster makes it a big upgrade. Did you pre-order the iPad Pro Magic Keyboard? I did. I'm really excited. Also, can we talk about that for a second? Why the heck did they say it was coming in May if it was ready by April? Like, TyGeek97, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub after 6 months. He said, yo, thank you. And what's his name? Brandon Iceberg, thank you for the bit. Appreciate that. Anyway, let's see. Did you pre-order the iPad? Yeah, I did. I got the 12.9-inch one, obviously, for my old iPad Pro, and it's supposed to get here within a week. Less than a week, actually. It says to expect delivery by the 21st, and it's the 16th, which, let me just mention, I am super, super happy about that because I was so excited for that keyboard case between the USB-C port and the adjustable angles. That's kind of the biggest point for me is the fact that I'll be able to have so much more angles to orient from during FaceTime calls and stuff like that. I don't really care that much about the keyboard and trackpad, but I'm really excited to start using that. And I'm really glad I don't have to wait till May because Amazon had the listings for them already, and Amazon had the launch date for the keyboard case being like May 30th, and I was like, oh god, I'm so excited to try this, but why do we have to wait till May? And then they just suddenly drop it now, and they're like, oh, you know what? We'll just launch it now. When has that ever happened? Honestly, when has Apple ever been like, okay, this is coming in October, and then they launch it in September? That like never happens. So I was super glad they did that, but it's like, it was very unexpected. A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one. Yes, I'll review the SE. Well, don't play Minecraft or Fortnite while charging through the keyboard. Yes, Michael and I tested that. Oh, hey, Viper subscribed with Twitch Prime for 9 months. Thank you very much. So Michael did a test because for those of you who don't know, the smart connector on the iPad Pro is capable of doing 5 watts maximum of charge rate, which is not great for a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but after Michael did some testing by plugging in his iPad with a 5-watt charge brick, and he discovered that it basically does what I described on the podcast and in my video, which is that it doesn't really give a charge to the iPad as much as it sustains the battery. So if you're doing something power intensive like playing Minecraft or Fortnite or probably editing 4K video and doing an export or something like that, if you're not doing any of those things and you're just kind of using it for social media, watching a video, using Discord, which is what I do a lot, if you're just doing basic stuff on it, the charge will not go down. So while you're plugged in, you can use it indefinitely from what we discovered. Because Michael was like, he was using the iPad for like an hour and the battery percentage did not go down even with like 5 hours worth of, I don't know if he did 5 hours, but like an hour's worth of normal tasks. It wasn't until he started doing things like Minecraft, heavy chunks, where it's like loading, very high frame rates. That's when the battery does start to go down, but I can promise you it goes down a whole lot slower than it does without a charge. Which is why I would say personally, it's better than nothing. I know it's not great because a lot of people are going to say that's stupid because they want to be able to plug into the keyboard case and have it charge up the iPad. I probably would assume it works better on the 11-inch with the 11-inch iPad Pro because the power consumption might not be as high given it's a smaller display and the battery's smaller. Like, I feel like, okay, Michael said he did 2 hours on Discord and the percentage did not going down. So I feel like it might perform differently with the 11-inch. I don't know for sure, but it's better than nothing. Because right now, like, you only have one port and that's it. and you either have to charge with it. But the idea is you can sustain your charge with the iPad and also have the full-size USB-C port free for other stuff. We have the accessories and full speed connectivity, so you can plug that into your cameras and not worry about the iPad dropping, and you don't need a dongle. So I've always wanted extra I/O on the iPad. Ever since the 2015 iPad Pro, I've been like, put another port on the other end. Just two would be perfect. Four is too much probably to ask for. That's why I put it in my concept. But if we just had one port on either side of the iPad, that would give so much more flexibility. So yeah, I this is as close as we can get. That charge port on the Magic Keyboard, it's not going to be good for any kind of accessories like data transfer speeds and stuff like that, because the smart connector does not transfer data very quickly at all. So I don't even think it'll work. If you plug in an external drive to the USB-C port on the iPad, it would probably not even register. It would be like, you got to use the iPad's USB-C port. It dropped 3% less in one Fortnite match than without the charger, so that's not insignificant. Yeah, it helps. It helps. It doesn't hurt. Viper says Twitch needs to get their ish together on the app. How does Viper get this? Is he like the first mod or something? Oh, founder. He has a founder badge. That's cool. Thank you, Viper. Let's see. My iPad Pro 10.5-inch drained with 5 watts slowly when I was doing something not that power intensive. I think it was OneNote or something similar. Okay, well, power usage might be different on the different iPads or something like that, but it's better than nothing. That's what matters. Let's see. I just realized the keyboard is almost as expensive as the SE, but then also the Pro stand is more expensive than the iPhone 11. Yeah, I thought after the Pro stand, how are people surprised by things like the Magic Keyboard? I saw so many people complain about that. I'm like, what did you expect? The last thing was $200, and no one. I flipped out on that. I felt like there wasn't that much anger over it. I was like, when the last iPad Pro came out, not the 2021, but the 2018 one, I was like, $200 for a keyboard? Heck no. There's a keyboard in the software, and it works fine. I'm not paying $200 for that alone. And now this thing comes out, and it has a trackpad, which drastically changes the whole interaction. It converts it from tablet with keyboard to a laptop full-fledged now, and it gives you more angle versatility, and it gives you like a floating design. It's sitting upright. It gives you extra I/O. The keyboards are backlit now. You're adding all this stuff, and now it's $350, and people are like, "Whoa, that's so much! That's $350 for a keyboard." I'm like, this isn't that crazy compared to the last accessory they sold for this thing. Like the little cover that's propping up my iPad right now. That thing was $100. Just because there's so much metal involved in these covers because they magnetically attach. They're expensive, but dang, do they work well. Like, holy crap, there is no snapping. There is no like plasticky like stuff you have to lock on like other cases. Like, you just pull it off. There's no latches, there's no rubber, there's nothing. And when you want to attach the iPad to it, magnets, boom, it's on. And it stays on. It's amazing. But you can tell if you take your iPad out of these kind of cases and you feel the insides, like you hear these, that's like, it has to be metal because of the magnets inside. So it's like, while it has a fabric-y exterior, this is a really high quality accessory. So I get why it's expensive, because there's not many other accessories that'll do the same thing for much cheaper. But the reason I didn't get the keyboard case was just because it's just a keyboard and that's in the software. But the Magic Keyboard case is doing way more than just adding a keyboard. Way big difference. Let's see. I would love a Magic Keyboard. Yeah, I'm glad they launched it early. They got our hopes up. Why just, if you were planning on launching it in April, just say that. Just say Magic Keyboard case coming in April. Why was that so hard? I've been using Windows 10 on my old desktop to do schoolwork, and in terms of Google Docs and that sort of stuff, it's better than iPad OS, which I've been using for 2 years now. Still prefer Mac OS though. Well, I guess that's a desktop versus iPad, which, I mean, if you're using Google Docs, Google's not going to optimize their software for the iPad. I know that from personal experience, but yeah, I wouldn't expect Google to make the experience better on the iPad than they would on a desktop, either browser or program. Magic Keyboard is more expensive than some decent Chromebooks, but then again, you'd be stuck with a Chromebook if you bought that instead of an iPad, which can do much more. It's true. It's a difference of cost and value. Cost is what you pay, value is what you get. So yeah, you can pay a lot less, but you'll get a lot less in that way. Um, I want a 31-inch iPad. I know. Put a 31-inch iPad on a stick, call it an iMac. I'd be good to go. This is what I meant when I did my video on my favorite Apple product. This is why the iPad Pro is my favorite Apple product. I basically want every single product in Apple's lineup to be more like that. Make the iPhone more like the iPad. Give it USB-C. Sure, give it the squared off edges. Give it 120 hertz. Give it Face ID that works in more angles. Just do more stuff like the iPad Pro. Make the iMac look more like the iPad Pro. Make a smaller version of the iPad Pro. Make a bigger version of the iPad Pro. Make MacBooks look more like that. Like, everything I want Apple to do comes back to what they did with the iPad. I'm just like, bring that to everything. Please. Please. Rob MCCR, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. I think they said May to be safe. Remember, the factories were closed then. So yeah, I guess they got ahead of the schedule, which is good. But does that mean if they were anticipating the Magic Keyboard to come out in May and then it actually comes out in April because things are getting back to normal for their production and assembly lines, does that mean that the iPhones aren't going to be delayed? I don't know. Maybe. Make the Apple TV remote look like the iPad Pro. I don't know about that one. I like, actually, to be honest, the old Apple TV remote that didn't have the trackpad and was just like a long stem of aluminum that was like silver and it didn't have any unnecessary glass on it. That remote's not that bad. We used that for a long time because my family had an Apple TV before they like refreshed it with tvOS and everything. And that remote, like what I liked about it was it wasn't as easy to lose. So many TV companies, pretty much all of them, they make their remotes black. This is black plastic, or with the new Apple TV remote, black glass. And you just always lose it because you're watching stuff at night and you have the lights off and you can't find the remote because it blends in and you lose it in the couch and stuff. That silver one was really hard to lose, which I liked about it. All they would have to do, in my opinion, to make a good Apple TV remote is take that old design and give it like Siri. Like give it the dictation and then let it be rechargeable. That was the one thing I didn't like about it, is that it had replaceable batteries. You'd have to like take it like those old like circular tiny watch batteries. I wish if they just slapped a port on there or give it a cheat coil or some kind, like something that you can recharge it and then a dictation button, that'd be fine. I really don't care about the trackpad, to be honest. I don't need the trackpad on the TV remote. If you could save money, I think there's a way you can make a classic, like, what are those called? The plus, kind of like how a lot of TVs have like the plus navigational, like just the arrow key basically, like that you click around. If you could save a lot of money that way, then just make a cheaper updated Apple TV remote. Make the Pro Stand look like the iPad Pro. Yes. Make the Pro Stand cost less than the iPad Pro. Man, that's crazy. You can get an 11-inch 2020 iPad Pro for less than a Pro Stand. I didn't think about that. Or yes, more importantly, make an Apple TV stick. Hopefully we can see something like that, I know we get a lot of leaks, but maybe that would be a good surprise up Apple's sleeve at Worldwide Developers Conference. Like, by the way, here's the new Apple TV stick. It has an A12 chip, but it's $100 and it doesn't take up as much space. So you can just plug it into the TV's HDMI and then plug it other end into power, and boom, you got tvOS in a stick for much cheaper. That would be great. So you want everything to be more like the iPad Pro? Then I guess we get AirPods that look like iPad Pros in your ears. Correct. That's what I want. It would look fantastic. What would be the advantage of a stick over a box when they do basically the same thing? The idea generally with making a streaming stick is that it's cheaper. At this point, the TV box also take up space on TV stands. If you're like me and you have the TV mounted on the wall itself, we have nowhere to put the Apple TV box out there. Though if they made a stick, we could just plug it into the TV. It just saves room. It's more minimal. It supports Apple's, ideology. Like, you don't need a box itself to be sitting on your TV stand anymore. There's not really a point to that. You can miniaturize very high quality and very high powered streaming technology. If all you're doing is watching TV, you don't need a giant box like the Apple TV has. The only reason the Apple TV is that big is because they wanted to put like, a fan in it so that they could cool down their massive, A10X and make it capable of like playing games at high performance, but they really don't need to. It does not need to be that big. I know because there are streaming sticks that are high quality, high performance. They can do 4K, they can do HDR, they can do all that crap, and they cost a whole lot less than the Apple TV. They're probably just not as good at playing games. But there's so little gaming being done on Apple TVs. Like, Apple has to be aware of that. They tried to bring Minecraft to it, and that flopped. And if Minecraft's not doing good, nothing's doing good because that's like the most popular game in the world. So if that's not getting traffic, I don't like if we got data on the people who are using Apple TVs and what amount of gaming. Yeah, it's funny that the Apple TV has a fan, but the iPad doesn't. That is kind of bizarre. The A10X chip was originally designed for the iPad Pros in 2017, but they didn't have a fan. But in the Apple TV, they have a fan for some reason. Um, for real, they'd be telling all the Apple Arcade people to optimize it for the TV. Like, girl, I know. No one's. I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing the data, but I feel like no one's using their Apple TV for gaming stuff. I feel like everyone's using it for. Like, they tried. They really tried when they revamped tvOS and made it all natural and smooth and everything. They really wanted to make tvOS to be like a new platform. They were like, look at all the shopping you can do with third-party applications on tvOS, and you can browse through them, and you can play these cool games because Apple TV remote has an accelerometer and a gyro built into it, and it's gonna be like your next Wii console. And it just, no one used it for that. Everyone uses it for watching TV. Hear me out. Put a small screen on the remote to go to the interface, but when you play something, it automatically goes to your TV. Hear me out. That's the iPhone. That's essentially what you've described. If you're going to start putting a screen on the remote, you might as well just control the Apple TV from the iPhone, which you can do pretty easily now. So if they made an Apple TV streaming stick, it should just not come with a remote at all, and you just control it from the iPhone, because there is like a Apple TV thing built into Control Center that mimics the remote really well. And there's already a bunch of stuff that makes more sense to bring to the iPhone instead of a remote. Like when you want to search something and you don't want to dictate it, you can just type it in on the iPhone really quick. So just make a version of tvOS that doesn't have a remote with it. Be fine. Let me go play the outdated version of Minecraft that you can't even buy anymore on the Apple TV, even though I have a Switch hooked up to it and an Xbox One X downstairs. I know, exactly. Have you decided on the SE color you're getting? I feel like everyone wants to get red because it looks cool and it also, it supports the pandemic, which is good and all. But, I mean, the white one also looks really solid, and I'm a big fan that it has black bezels. So I kind of want to get that one. And I also just want to do something a little different because I feel like every YouTube channel is going to get the red one. Like, literally everybody's going to get red. So why not stand out a little bit? And I'm going to be returning it, so the proceeds don't really matter that much for me because I'm not keeping it. So get white one and one red. Decide and send it back. White one is a little more unique. Yeah, because it's not like that traditional iPhone design with the home button has never had like the black bezels with the white back before, which I like. That's cool. Nah, I don't feel like the guy that wants to get all three. I've seen channels do that. It's just kind of weird. I don't. It's like we don't have a printer, so whenever we want to print something, we got to go like ask a friend to print it, and like when we return stuff, it's this whole thing of having to wrap it up and package it, and we already do it a lot because of all the products I review and return and mail back and that kind of thing. So I don't want to do more than we necessarily have to. The box would be much cheaper if the remote wasn't included. The remote on its own is around $100. I think it's around $60 if you look at Apple TV accessories. They charge like $60 for the TV remote. So yeah, if you took out the TV remote from the Apple TV box set, that would make it more like $90 instead of $150. Well, I guess if you're doing the 4K one, it would be more like $100 because that one's like $180. So yeah, it would still be $90. Why not just get a printer? Because we don't really have a place to put it, and like we're already trying to get rid of so much stuff anyway, and you got to get ink cartridges and all that, and we have like my mother-in-law has a printer she's going to get rid of eventually, and we're just going to get that from her and it'll be free. So we're like in between conversions right now where it's like we have a printer that's going to be ours soon. We don't want to get one right before we inherit another one, and we have lots of friends with printers that have happily printed stuff for us in the past. So it's just one of those weird, awkward things. I just don't like returning things. So I have to do it for my job a lot of the time, but it's an annoyance. I don't want to have to buy an iPhone just for the color, just to be like, this one looks cool. Okay, I don't like this one and return it. Just seems like a lot of work. Let's see. It cost you $100 to get your remote replaced? Well, I wonder when that was, because look at the Apple Store. Follow along with me, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to scroll down to the Apple TV section. Because I remember, because I looked this up like recently. We're going to look up Apple TV accessories. And let's see, remotes and controllers. Siri remote. There it is. $59. It's right there. I'm looking at it. So to buy one new, it's not even a replacement. Just if I wanted to buy a second remote, it would cost me $59. So I don't know why your replacement cost you $100. Maybe they changed it. What I like about your direction is that you don't just review the phone just like everyone else, even though it's just an iPhone 8 basically, but use it for a long time. Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. I mean, I did a video a while back when Apple, I think it was 2018, when Apple unveiled the product Red 8 Plus. I was like, ooh, that's cool. Let's buy it. So I bought that, and I had been using the iPhone 10 for 6 months at that point. So I finally, I went away from the 10 and back to the 8 Plus for a couple weeks, I think. And I was like, this isn't that bad. I was like, there were a lot of things I actually missed about the 8 Plus. Like, I liked not having to deal with such a tinier keyboard. The iPhone 10 was really narrow. And Touch ID, not as great, but the fact that the keyboard was larger and that I knew it was exactly 1080p. So when I was watching videos and anything, I didn't have the choice of pinching in and cropping it and zooming out and having the black bars. Like, it was just fixed. So there was less options when watching YouTube, but that kind of gave me a little bit more peace of mind. It also just looked gorgeous. I kind of like, I'm a big fan of the size of these phones, but I'm not totally against, I like the look of the iPhones that have aluminum and glass combo. Like, the stainless steel is cool, but the aluminum ones still look really nice too. So I like just mixing things up. I like just switching to different phones easily. When it's iPhones. I really like switching different iPhones because I don't have to lose iMessage. I'm just trying out iOS, and I'm still getting all the benefits of iOS, but at the same time, I'm trying different hardware. Okay, now I have a smaller phone again, and that makes me appreciate going back to the bigger phones once I change out, try different phones for a while. I switched to the 10R for a couple months, and then I switched back to the 10S Max, and, I just hop between phones sometimes. It's harder when you switch to Android because you break your whole ecosystem and you can't use your Apple Watch and iMessage is all screwed up. So that's not as fun, but yeah, I like using different iPhones. Are you scared of liking the home button again? No, that doesn't concern me because I've gone back to using the home button after using Face ID and gestures before, and it wasn't better. I didn't find it better. I definitely prefer gestures. So I've done that before, and I didn't. This isn't new to me. I've gone from gestures back to home button before, except this one is probably going to be more drastic because I'm jumping from the biggest display to the tiniest iPhone display available with one move. I'm going from 6.5 inch to 4.7, so that's going to be kind of drastic. Hear me out. An Apple printer for $2K and $400 ink cartridges. Wow, you should work for Apple. Switch to the iPhone 4 just for fun. That's not as easy to do because it doesn't take the same SIM card as my current phone. And it's also not running the latest version of iOS. So there comes a point, it hasn't happened a lot recently, but something people used to ask me a lot was Drew, would you rather have to use a Pixel 4 or an iPhone 5 for a year or something like that? And I'm like, Well, there comes a point where the older the iPhone, the less features you're getting that benefit the ecosystem. So if I'm using an iPhone that's so old that I can't use my watch, it's not even gonna really work with iMessage, and I can't really use AirDrop, and I can't like if it doesn't really if it doesn't run the latest iOS and it's not really getting updates anymore, then it's not really even like it's not rocking the features I like having an iPhone for, which is a lot of that is just the ecosystem stuff. So at a certain point, it's like, well, either way, it's going to be inconvenient whether I go with an Android or a super old iPhone. Um, so that's why I don't switch to like super old phones for a while because it's like I can't get my SIM card in it, so I'm not going to go through the work of like trying to figure out how to get an old SIM card to work with an older version of iOS. Now I got to downgrade the iOS version to get it to work reliably. Like I know there's people that have gotten like carriers, modern carriers to support the original iPhone, but they have to go back in software version. Like it's a whole lot of work, and you know you're going to use it and be like, "Oh, this is kind of cool," and then you're going to go back to using it anyway. So I'm like, I don't think there's much to learn from that experience, but after using gestures on my iPad Pro when I bought it, my iPhone 8 now feels very antiquated. Is that a word? Antiquated? Sorry. I'm a college dropout. Give me a break. Have you ordered the new smart keyboard? It's not called the smart keyboard. It's called the Magic Keyboard. There's a difference. And yes, I've ordered one. It should get here on the 21st, which I'm really excited to use. I'll probably do a live stream with it. In fact, because it's such a big deal, I'll probably unbox it and set it up with a YouTube live stream. That'll probably get a lot of attention. I am playing Hungry Shark on my Apple TV right now. Yes, taking advantage of the A10X chip. Hungry Shark. It's actually smarter than a smart keyboard. You like big screens? Get the 12.9-inch iPad Pro and cellular and use it as your phone. No, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro I've gone back and forth on a lot with using it with the cover or using it like just in my hands. And after using the 11-inch iPad Pro, which I have returned, I don't have it anymore, but I realized afterwards like that is a drastically different experience than the 12.9-inch. It's bizarre because the screen sizes feel very close. 11, 12.9, there's not a huge difference there, but honestly, like it makes a huge difference. Being able to use that 11-inch iPad Pro, I was very comfortable using it in my hands and not setting it down on a table because I didn't have a cover for it or a case for it to have it prop up or anything like that. It was totally fine just using it in my hands. Whereas 12.9-inch, not great for that. It's okay, but it's great if you're using it like I am. Why am I pointing to it like it's back there? It's right here. It's great when you're using it with a cover and you prop it up or you set it down on a desk or something like this. It makes a whole lot of sense because you have so much more screen real estate. But when it comes to using an iPad as a phone, there's all kinds of issues with that. Like it doesn't support the Apple Watch, which is a huge deal for me. Partly, like my carrier Mint Mobile doesn't support tablets, but that's okay because I always thought that was a waste anyway. I was like, if you want your iPad to have cellular, just hotspot off your phone. I can't think of a situation where it's like I need cellular on the iPad and my phone's not with me. Like I don't care. I know some people want like a separation. Like people want a carrier like they don't want to drain their iPhone battery or something, or they don't like some carriers limit your hotspot speed or your hotspot data usage. But like I said, like I do all my work from home, so cellular on the iPad is very much unnecessary. Um, well, maybe if you had a weak phone battery, it would make it would make sense, but I don't. The 11 Pro Max battery is insanely good. I've gone on trips with this, and I've used the iPad with a hotspot on my phone, and it worked great. It worked fantastic. Mint Mobile supports hotspots, so check them out. Not a sponsor. They reached out to me though the other day. I don't know if it's well, it's not going to turn into a sponsorship, but they offered me one, which I thought was funny because I was like, it was the day after I did the whole live stream about how we don't need to do sponsorships. Someone contacted me and was like, "You want to do like a sponsorship with Mint Mobile?" And I was like, "Yeah, we don't do those." But they offered me some stuff I might get just like care packages, which are fun. They already sent me one when I did my first video, but they're nice. They're friendly, especially when someone is referring them. They they want to be friendly. Let's see. Is the Apple TV still your least favorite Apple product? Mm-hmm. It's the one I use the least, for sure. I feel like I haven't used it in several weeks now. I feel like, yeah, I'm trying to remember the last time we turned it on. It's not that there's any, like, it's not inherently bad. When I say it's like the worst Apple product, well, I don't know about product. I mean, I kind of hate the Mac Pro in the Pro display, but they have their use cases. I mean, they have some people that appreciate them. But like when it comes to just all the Apple products I own, the one I use and care about the least is the Apple TV. We could get rid of that and I would not care. I would not notice. I really just have it because I bought it in 2017 when it came out to review for the channel, and it wasn't that much money, so I wasn't like, oh, let's return it. I was using it back then. Since then, though, we've got a Roku, and it's built into the TV, and it works great, and I'm happy with it. So there's just not really, there's not a good reason to get rid of it, and there's also not a good reason to keep it. So it's just kind of there. Getting cellular on an iPad feels redundant nowadays, considering we're in quarantine for a while. I know, exactly. Yeah. Are you getting the new iMac Pro whenever it comes out? I would say it depends a lot on what it is, but probably not at this point. I think I'm pretty much sold on the 16-inch MacBook Pro whenever that gets updated with new CPUs. I know that Intel just unveiled some new ones and they're Wi-Fi 6 compatible. So whenever the 16-inch MacBook Pro gets another spec boost, which Apple does all the time, it's not going to get a design change, but like it seems like once a year or sometimes twice a year they will update the specs of the MacBook Pros. And we got the 16-inch MacBook Pro in October last year. So at some point in this year, they'll probably update it with some new CPU and GPU options, and I'll get a maxed out CPU, best GPU. I don't think I'll need to max out the RAM or the storage because those get really expensive really quick. But I've noticed, like, if you don't max out the RAM or storage, you can get a really powerful MacBook for pretty cheap. Because I've been playing around with the configurator, and here, you can follow along with me if you want. Let's check out. Oh, by the way, there's a tech video dropping in about 20 minutes, so stay tuned for that. This live stream will end before that. But let's go MacBook Pro. We'll get try to spec it out, except, like get the highest tiered configuration, except don't max out the RAM or storage, and then see how much it is. I'll do it. Okay, 16-inch. So it starts at 2800. Okay, we're getting 2.4 gigahertz, 8-core i9, turbo boost to 5 gigahertz. The graphics is only $100 extra. I know it doesn't make a huge difference, but AMD Radeon Pro with 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, and it's $3,100. Okay, $3,100, and you have the most powerful CPU and the most powerful GPU in any MacBook Pro available. Okay, you only have 16 gigs of RAM, and you only have 1 terabyte of storage actually on that higher configuration. That's not bad. Like that model specifically is not bad at all. The only thing I think I would change is I'd probably up the storage either to 2 or 4 terabytes. But yeah, that sounds like the best for me, to be honest. That sounds like something I would get. Let's see. When are we getting a 5G Apple TV? That's the real question. The AirPower might be his worst Apple product, but AirPower doesn't exist, so it doesn't count. Disqualified. What do you think of the revived AirPower leaks? I personally doubt. I don't doubt that John has sources. I don't doubt that there are AirPower prototypes internally, but I do doubt that they would release it. It doesn't sound like, honestly, it does not sound like something Apple would do, to be frank. Like, there's very, very rare times. Like, if you go throughout Apple's history, hardly ever does it happen where they unveil a product and then cancel it, like later on. And that's what happened with AirPower. They unveiled it in 2017 and said it was coming early 2018. Didn't come out in 2018. And then in early March of end of March 2019, they came forward with the press, with the public release and said, AirPower doesn't meet our standards. We want to continue to invest in this technology, but it's not coming. So we canceled the project. it sounds very, very bizarre to me that they would then just bring it back after announcing they were canceling it. If they had plans of reviving it, I don't see why they would announce that it would be canceled. Why wouldn't they just say well, we're working on it, but we're not going to meet our deadline? That makes more sense. That would probably protect the stock price. They would probably say like, Air Power's not ready yet, and it's going to take a while. That would make more sense rather than. And there were a lot of reliable, very, very reliable and consistent leakers talking about Air Power coming out right before it was canceled. Like people were saying the launch was about to happen, and then they scrapped it, which to me proves that Apple, like internally, the engineering team and the prototype team, they're very capable of developing them and using them and testing them, but still at the last second, someone big, some chairman high up at Apple can pull the plug very quickly. If they want to, they can very quickly be like, "Oh, cool, it works. That's great and everything." Yeah, we're not shipping it. Like they could do that. So that's why I don't doubt the sources. I just doubt the launch because I don't think that's up to the software and engineering team. I know I've talked to Jern about it. We had a long phone call the other day, and he gave me all kinds of details. Some stuff he hasn't even announced yet. But it doesn't change the fact that because there's someone working on something internally does not mean it's coming out. Because AirPower was worked on internally for a long time, and they were really, really close to launching it, apparently, before they pulled the plug and changed their mind at the last second. So, I mean, we had a long talk about how prototype team could get it all working, and it's working consistently, and then they slap it on Tim Cook's desk, and he goes, "Wow, that's really, really cool. Throw it away." Apple's a company that makes a ton of stuff that never sees the light of day, which is why I'm skeptical about anybody claiming something is back like that. Because getting a launch date for an iPhone right, like a couple weeks beforehand, that's one thing. But predicting that a charger that was previously canceled is coming out a year from now, that's a whole nother can of, like, Apple doesn't know what they're doing. To me, like, that shows how unsure we are about this report. Because Apple doesn't have a timeline for this thing. There's no timeline if the guess is Q1 2021. So much can change in that amount of time. So much could change. And to me, honestly, it feels like Apple would want people to forget about AirPower as much as possible. That's why they came forward with the press event. If they were planning on releasing it later, they would have just said nothing. They would have not canceled it and announced that it's not coming out. To me, it sounds a lot more like a, put on your tinfoil hats, everyone, it's coming back. And remember, people, yes, John himself said there's no guarantee that it will come out. So keep that in mind, too. Before everyone acts like he has a perfect track record, he does not. He's got a lot of things right, but he's also got some things wrong. So keep that in mind. He is a human. It'd be a little different if someone like CoinX said it was coming out next week. That would be a little different, but no, this is way off in the future type stuff that like so many plans can change, and it doesn't necessarily matter if there's prototypes of it internally or not, because again, Apple makes all kinds of prototypes. Like I remember patents for. There's been 1 billion patents for a fingerprint reader built into the display, and that never came true. Or it's still pending, or now it's coming next year. Now it's coming next year. There were also a bunch of leaks in 2017 about Project Titan. I remember seeing a bunch of confirmed leaks from confirmed sources saying Apple's working on a car. They've hired like over 200 people, and it's going to come out in 2020. I remember reading that in like 2016, 2017. And that didn't end up happening because plans change and release cycles change. And there's a lot of moonshot projects that the hardware team works on that don't end up resolving. One more thing wasn't necessarily wrong. One more thing was just a quote that had very, very poor timing. It would be one thing if CoinX tweeted like, the iPhone is going to be called, iPhone 9, and then it ends up being iPhone SE. That would have been like, see, CoinX said something like this, and then it ended up not being that.
Whereas what he did was say, but there's one more thing. He didn't say, there will absolutely be a one more thing at the next September event. Not what he said. He threw us off, and I'm angry for that because it gives us what did that mean? What did he mean by that? But at the same time, it could have been any number of things. It could have been something Apple canceled or pulled the plug on at the last minute. We don't know, but we definitely know he he had some inside sources for sure because he knew some stuff way before everybody else. Whereas John has pulled the plug on several leaks before. He's been like, okay, I was wrong about that, and I had to delete that tweet because it was not accurate and I wasn't supposed to share it. And he tweeted out timelines and stuff that were not completely accurate. I'm not saying it's. People got to understand, me and John, we go way back. We communicate off the record and on the record. More so recently, we talk a lot off the record. But that, like, I think he would agree that he should not be looked at as someone with a perfect track record. If you asked him that, he would probably tell you, I do not get everything 100% accurately. He's just doing his best, which is the best any of us can do. Before finishing Air Powers, that the team was very smug and they really knew it could work, and when it didn't, all the engineers were the I told you so they could prove them right. They will. Yeah, but all that can be done internally, though. All of that. That iPhone SE isn't going to succeed because of no Slofi button. Very true, King Turtle. Nobody should buy it. Nobody should recommend it. The iPhone will be the death of Apple. Don't buy it. They're doomed. Rudy Live, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub for 13 months. What's your biggest wish for upcoming macOS or the heaviest annoyance on Catalina for you? Hope everything's all right over there. Greetings from Europe. Yeah, everything's going well so far. We're all healthy. We're all just hanging out at home a bunch, doing our best. And yeah, things are going good. Biggest wish for macOS? Oh, man. There's really not like a big feature I feel like they're missing out on. What I think macOS desperately needs is like the iOS 12 of updates where they barely change anything and they just make it all about less bugs, software optimization, making things work reliably, because Catalina for some people has worked fine. I know, before you say that in the chat. Works fine for me, works fine for me. But it's been horrible for a bunch of other people, and all of the stuff they brought in Catalina was really tiny. All they really did was break apart iTunes, which I wasn't using on my Mac anyway, and I don't really use the music app on my Mac. I don't use the TV app. I don't use the podcast app. All that stuff I use on other devices now. My Mac is basically just for working on videos. That's most of it. And watching content while I'm working on videos, which is just within a browser. It's easy. So what I want is just a whole bunch of focus on performance, stability, updating older Macs and bringing them up to speed, and just efficiency. I just want a really, really optimization focused update. I really don't need new features, new designs of any kind. Really, honestly, I don't want anything huge. A big redesign or anything like that is not necessary, personally. They could update little things here and there, but nothing I can think of at the top of my head. I'm really happy with it for the most part. Catalina's been a lot more stable in more recent updates for me. I haven't had that many bugs, but yeah, like there's really not much I think they should change. I think macOS has become such a productivity focused OS now and not so much a casual OS that they don't need to add a bunch of stuff to it. Like it doesn't need a big overhaul. They need a stability update for sure. Yeah. Let's see. The Apple TV app on macOS is very well organized and useful. Okay, well, I don't use it, but I just don't watch TV on my, like, the only stuff I watch on my Mac is YouTube videos. That's it. If I'm watching Netflix or Disney Plus or streaming services like that, I'll go to my living room where I have an actual TV. There's no point for watching Apple TV shows on my Mac. I don't know. Some people do that, I guess. Desktop OSs in general don't really need much improvement. Mobile operating systems have a lot of room to improve, however. Yeah, both do. I think iOS is going to become a lot more like Android, and Android is going to become a lot more like iOS. They're going to just take things from each other, which is good, and they can hopefully make them the best they can be. But yeah. What color SE are you ordering? New white is super nice. Yeah, I'm leaning towards white. I'm not sure. I feel like everybody's going to get red, so I should probably be... I could differentiate myself. Like the thing is, like, I've seen a red iPhone before, but I haven't seen a white iPhone with a black front with the home button. Like, that's new. That's different. But Randy from the Talos of Tech podcast, he had the red iPhone 8 for a while. I remember him using that. So there's plenty of like people I know with the red iPhone 8. So getting a red iPhone SE just doesn't feel like that big of a change. Whereas the white back, which matches the 10R, it's not silver. So it's actually a different color than the silver iPhone 8. It's like a different shade. Whereas the red is red. You know, it's pretty much the same. It might be a tad bit different, but white looks better with the aluminum bands than stainless steel. I don't like the chrome pairing. I can kind of get that argument. Like, the tricky part is I like the way this matches my Apple Watch because my Apple Watch is stainless steel. I would like a aluminum Apple Watch. That would be a nice combo, but I don't want to lose the sapphire glass. So kind of in a way, the glass on my Apple Watch controls the color iPhone I get, which is kind of weird. But I mean, hey, that's the ecosystem, how they all, couple together. Let's see. Does money still go to fight COVID-19? Like, they can't get the money back once they donate it. I don't know how that works. But yeah, I don't plan on keeping it, so. White iPhone SE with black bezels will be recognizable. Yeah, that'll be a standoff thing. Like, if you see someone with black bezels in the white back, you'll be like, hey, that's the SE. But you'll probably know from the centered logo as well. But that's on all the colors. I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. I'm hoping for a space blue iPhone this year. Yeah, I saw leaks for that floating around. It feels like every year they want to do like one color a little bit different. They did midnight green last year. I'd be kind of surprised if they did midnight green again. Especially if it seems like iPhone production, it's going to be such a big redesign this year. Usually when they do big redesigns, they don't add a bunch of color options. They usually, if they do a big refresh to the design language, that's typically when they just keep all the colors the same as last year. The only time they add a bunch of colors is when it's not a new design, like the iPhone 7. It changed a bunch of stuff, but the general look of it wasn't that different, so they had like 7 colors for the iPhone 7. I just bought a red iPhone and returned it, and everyone yelled at her, so she donated the entire price of the iPhone to Red. Yeah, see, I feel like that's... I mean, it's good to donate, but it's not the same thing when you're donating because people are forcing you to or asking you to. It's just like, hey, you should donate to this thing, and you're like, fine. Like, now they're donating because they feel guilty. Like, you guilt tripped someone into donating, which I guess, the money is sent, it supports the cause, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird when people like force someone to do something like that. Is that charity at that point? Or is she basically paying money to get people off her back? I don't know. It's kind of weird. macOS will mostly be about ARM optimizations. Yeah, I feel like macOS ARM will probably be different from the macOS that runs on all of our Macs currently. So that's going to be kind of separate. I feel like that'll be a whole different thing. Drew, do you like midnight green? It's a very popular color. Not really. I know a lot of people like it, but I didn't care for it. That's why I didn't get it, because at the same time, like, part of the reason I got silver was because I felt like everybody was getting midnight green. Like, everyone I saw was like, "Ooh, midnight green, that's the new color. I got to get midnight green." And when I went to the Apple store and I looked at it, I was like, this looks really like close to space gray. Like, I looked at it from a distance on the other side of like the Apple table or whatever, and the midnight green was right next to space gray, and I thought it was the same color. Like, I thought it was the same finish. It wasn't until like I walked up to it, picked it up, and looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, it is kind of green. And I was like, green's never been my thing for anything, so I don't know. And I picked up the silver, and I was like, that looks cool. I loved the look of the silver. Especially with the frosted glass and everything. So that's why I was like, yeah, I'm glad I went with silver. I was tempted with the midnight green, but changed it at the last minute and got gray. There you go. Do you use True Tone on your iPhone? Yeah, I think so. I think it asks you that when you set it up and when you're like, see what this looks like without True Tone, and then it gets super blue and you're like, ugh, no, don't do that. She didn't donate because people told her to. She added a clip in the video where she proved that she donated because people were saying she didn't. Okay, well, that's a little bit better. That's good. Good for iJustine. macOS Tiger was referenced as Tiger on Intel. who's going to be the Tiger King of macOS. I'm patiently waiting for the Galaxy Buds. Bean with ANC for 140 seems like a great addition to my Samsung ecosystem. I don't know why, but when Yolo said that, I read it as General Grievous, like, this will make a fine addition to my collection. True Tone is something you don't notice until it's gone. Yeah, in that way, it's kind of a sucky feature, you know? It's like, no one asked for it, no one cared about it, but then you add it, and you're like, oh, okay, True Tone, whatever. And then you take it away, and you're like, hey, wait, where's True Tone? You know, it's like, we're going to introduce to you a feature you didn't want, and now if you don't have that feature, you're going to be mad. It's like, thanks, I guess. I don't know how to feel about this, but okay. Anyway, tech video's dropping in a couple minutes, so stay tuned for that, guys. Appreciate all the Twitch Primes and the bit donations today. And we'll see, I guess, if MacBook Pro comes out next month. Really, really excited to get the Magic Keyboard case for my iPad. I'm getting that next week. It should be on Tuesday. It's a delivery window, so the delivery says between the 21st and the 23rd. So it's some point next week. But I'm excited to get it. I'll probably do a YouTube stream of that unboxing and setup, and it'll be very, very similar. But stay tuned for that. And, of course, tomorrow at 5 a.m. Pacific, iPhone SE pre-orders will go live. So feel free to pre-order your iPhone SE to the three of you out there. It's kind of like iPhone SE, the phone for every dad out there, you know? I didn't have a father, so the iPhone SE is the best I can get. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have an excellent rest of your day. Bye-bye.